Hey everybody, welcome back to another windy Sunday. A combined Sunday and windy. Brilliant. Tack för sist, välkommen tillbaka. Hopefully the mic picks it up okay. I have a mic somewhere that I can put on my shirt. I gotta find it for situations like this. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm gonna remember in the beginning, if you're digging the videos, please subscribe, thumbs up, comments. I really appreciate it. Even if you don't like me, but you think the videos are interesting, a thumbs up is still cool. It's all good. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, I get it. Everybody's different. So, I have noticed, I would not say a lot, but a fair bit. I've had quite a few comments talking about, you say you left the Mormon church, why do you do so many Mormon videos? Well, it's part of my life. First, there are actually several channels out there that are devoted solely to talking to people who left the Mormon church, including the person that's running the channel. That's their whole show, and it's cool. I've watched a bunch of them myself. If you think it's weird that I talk about this, that's cool. There's lots of content out there. I hope you watch mine, but if you don't, that's cool. I get it. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So, I did not have the choice to join the Mormon church. I joined the church when I was a little over a year old in 1965 in Stavanger, Norway. My parents converted. My dad has a very, what's the right word? He's very into his conversion story. And he believes strongly in his faith, and I respect him for that. And I've talked about that, so I won't go into that today. But I never had that choice. They say you have a choice when you're 8 years old when you get baptized. There's no choice there. If I'd have said I'm not getting baptized, we'd have had a talk until I decided, oh, that's the right choice. My choice came after my mission. I served a Mormon mission mainly because I knew my parents wanted me to, and I wanted them to be happy, them to be proud, not to disappoint them. When I did leave the church, they were disappointed. My dad especially was disappointed. But he has come to terms with it, and we have a fantastic relationship. He still wants me to come back. I don't see that ever happening, but, never say never. But I don't think there's anything weird about talking about. That's what my channel is. My experiences, my stories. Hopefully people will find them interesting. When I was on the Mormon mission, I was never completely convinced that that's the true church. This is the way to do it. All these, rituals, experiences, covenants you have to enter into. Well, that was just crazy. I wish I could have shown you that. I've never seen this before. I gotta show you this. There's a tree right here. Out of the corner of my eye, there's a birdhouse up there, and I put bird food in there once in a while. We don't have squirrels here. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something running down the tree. I was like, what the hell is that? And I look over, and there's a little mouse running down the tree from like 8 feet up. And I don't know if it saw that I saw it, and it jumped into the vines under the trampoline. That was crazy. I didn't even know mice went up trees. I've been around mice my whole freaking life. I've never seen that before. That was kind of crazy. We have a chicken coop over here, and we have mice in there. We try to get rid of them, but as long as they don't come in the house, I don't really care. We have 3 cats. That takes care of it for the most part. Anyway, back to the story. When I was on my mission, I've talked about how the first couple of months, not in the MTC, the Missionary Training Center in Provo, it was fine. It was very rigid, hard work. You had to get up at 6 every day. You had to go to bed at 9 every day. You had the same schedule pretty much every day. Classes, meetings, church meetings on Sunday. It was fine. I met some cool dudes in there, and we became friends. But the first couple months in country, in Norway, were miserable for me. Other than my divorce 30 some years ago, worst experience of my life. I was in a deep funk, And if I had the money, I would have flown home, because they don't pay for you to fly home. They fly you home when you're done, but if you want to leave early, you got to figure that out on your own. So I definitely wasn't convinced at that point. I tried to make myself believe it, because it would make it easier for me to be there. If I believed it, it made more sense for me to be walking around knocking on random strangers' doors saying, hey, can we talk to you about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? When I think about it now, you know, I have a no soliciting sign on my door. Doesn't stop people. It's amazing. It says no soliciting, please do not knock or ring the doorbell. And just yesterday, it happens consistently. It's always young guys mostly, but there have been a couple girls too, mostly in their 20s. And I just look at the sign and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not buying anything from you. I do not buy stuff from random strangers that come to my house. So I get that a lot of people are not cool with somebody coming up and knocking on their door and not trying to sell them, you know, encyclopedias or a computer. They're trying to sell them a religion, a lifestyle, a whole different lifestyle. So I understand, especially now, why most people never let us in. It was very rare. There was one town I was there, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 months, we got into one house in all that time. Excuse me. So it was winter, so it was up in North Norway. The sun would peak above the mountains at about 11 a.m. and then it would go back down about 1:30. It was depressing, it was miserable, it was awful. There were 2 towns I was in that I was miserable. The rest actually was pretty good, especially my last couple. And my last 4 or 5 months, I can't remember, were in my hometown of Stavanger. That was pretty cool because I had a new mission president that let me go see my relatives in the country a couple times. That was very cool. And I had come to terms with, like I said, I tried to convince myself. I did the praying. I did everything they say you're supposed to do. I basically wanted to believe, but I was at a point where it's like, okay, this definitely could be true. So let's act like it is. Let's live our life like it is. Let's knock on these doors. There was actually a point when I had about 2 months left, and a lot of missionaries burn out at the end. I can't remember, I think it was about 6 weeks before you go home, you get your papers telling you the specific time, the flights, all your information for going home. A lot of guys, I can't speak for the ladies because I didn't know any, or I barely knew any sister missionaries. You start to burn out there, and I knew that was coming up in a couple of weeks. And I had just had it. I had a guy slam the door in my face, and at this point, you know, I'd been doing this for 16 months. And I was a seasoned veteran. And I turned to my companion, that's the person that you serve with. You're with them 24 hours a day. That gets old too, trust me. And I said, I'm done. They're like, what do you mean you're done? I didn't mean for this to evolve into a mission story, but I'm going to tell it now. I'm into it. I said, I can't do this anymore. We have people spit at us, slam doors in our face, tell us to F off in English. Even though I spoke fluent Norwegian at that time, you couldn't tell I wasn't just native Norwegian. My companions never could. You know, they had very strong American accents, so they would tell us to F off in English. Sometimes they'd swear at us in Norwegian, and of course I understood all of it. And you get to a point where it's like, I can't take any more of this abuse. What am I doing here? This isn't doing squat. Like I said in previous videos, I think I baptized around 7 or 8 people in that whole year and a half, and that was way above average for that mission. It's a lot of freaking work, and I do believe every single one of those people has left the church, either passed away or left the church. Most left before they passed away. I just got to the point where I could not take the abuse. I had grown up in an era, in a town. If you've ever seen the movie Outsiders, Patrick Swayze, Tom Cruise, all those guys, fighting was a thing. Fighting was a thing for us. You know, if somebody offended you, some other dude got in your face, you fought. And I always had the urge to do that. I controlled it my whole mission. You know, I didn't hit anybody. I swore at one kid one time. I just had enough. Sorry, there's a plane flying over. I felt bad about that. The kid actually found me and apologized to me, and I apologized to him. But I was, you know, I kept everything under wraps. So when that about 16-month period came and that guy slammed the door in my face, told us to piss off or whatever he said to us, I'm done. And my companion is like, well, what do you want me to do? I said, I don't care what you do. I'm not doing this anymore. I am done. I will hang out for 2 months until I can go home. And he convinced me to write the mission president. We didn't have a phone. So I wrote him a letter from Stavanger to Oslo. I think it took a day or two for the letter to get there and a couple days to get a response from him. So there were like 4 or 5 days where I was like, I'm not doing this. I am not taking this abuse anymore. I'm going to lose it. And he wrote me a really nice letter back. I have it somewhere, you know, that he understood. And he basically did the whole preaching to me thing, but in a nice way. Like, you're doing God's work. This is what you're supposed to do. I understand it can be really hard at times. Sympathetic, empathetic, but kind of like, you take your time, but try to get back to what you're supposed to be doing. So I took about a week, and then I was like, you know what? I only have whatever it was at that time, 6-7 weeks left. I was like, I can do this. I can fight my way through this. And I did, and I was fine. But it's not easy. So in that whole time on that mission, I tried really hard to, you know, I used to bear my testimony and tell people I believe in the church. You're raised to do that, by the way. You see little 2-3-year-old kids get up during fast and testimony meeting. If you don't know what that is, once a month, and this is my experience from 30 years ago, so if things have changed, I'm sorry. Once a month, I believe they still have this, you have fast and testimony meeting. You're supposed to fast for 24 hours. You're supposed to donate, in theory, the money that you would have saved there to charity, tithing, whatever. And then the next day you go to church, and for sacrament meeting, instead of having speakers come up to the pulpit and speak, they pass a mic around, and anybody can stand up and bear their testimony. Talk about, some people drone on. It's like, every once in a while you get a lonely person that you know just has nobody to talk to, and they'll get up and talk for a half hour, and it's only a 50-60 minute meeting. But most of the time it's a couple minutes, and when it's kids it's like 20 seconds. But you can tell they're up there saying what they've rehearsed, what their parents have told them to say. A 3-year-old, I don't believe for a second, knows what they're talking about when it comes to that kind of stuff. But it was nice. It's nice. I did that on my mission too, because I'm the guy that's supposed to be trying to convert people. And when you're in these little branches, wards, whatever, all over Norway, you're kind of a leader. They have a leader, they have a bishop or a branch president. But the missionaries are definitely looked up to as kind of part of the leadership there. And at least that's how it used to be. So I tried to lead. I tried to show by example. But I was never fully committed. In fact, when I came home in late August. I think it was August 31st of 1984. I remember that date because it was the girl I had dated before I went on a mission that I really liked. That was her birthday, and I was hoping to get back before she went back to college. I didn't get back in time. She went down to BYU. I didn't see her until the Christmas break. That's when we got back together and dated off and on for a couple of years. That's a whole other story. I should tell that story sometime. Wow. That was, yeah. I didn't handle it well. I let it drag out way too long. Anyway, I had the September, October, November, December before I could go back to college. So during that time, I hung out with friends, the few that were around. A lot were at college, others had moved, dated a little bit, and just hung out and had a good time. Got a job almost immediately. In fact, I bugged the hell out of the guy that I had worked for before because he had no job for me. And I just went every day until he just gave in and gave me a job. Wasn't much to do, but that's what I did for 4 months. Then I went to Rick's College, which is now BYU, Idaho. Mormon school, pretty strict rules, but a lot of people back then, I can't speak for now, sent kids that were going astray there hoping to straighten them out. Even though it was a Mormon school, there was a portion of that school that was a party school. I never had any problems with rules, and I don't mean following the rules. I mean, if I broke the rules, I never had any issues. I don't know. I was sly. I don't know. I'd never lived on campus either. If you lived on campus, it was much tougher to break curfew. You had a curfew. Even if you lived off campus, you were supposed to be back to your apartment at a certain time. The apartments were segregated. Boys one, girls the other. You could not have mixed apartments like most colleges where there's, you know, 2 dudes here, or 3 girls here, a guy and a girl there. That's not how it was. It's very strictly enforced. And you had to live in approved housing, even if it wasn't on campus. So I started straying pretty quickly as soon as I got to school. You have to go to church to get an endorsement to keep going to Rick's or BYU. I don't know how I pulled it off. I guess I went enough that they let me slide, or I let them think I went enough, because I skipped a lot. And when I got to BYU in 1986, fall of 86, I skipped even more. I had some roommates that were really good buddies of mine from home, met some new good friends, and a lot of us just didn't go to church. So I felt myself sliding away. When I was 25, which by Mormon standards, especially then, was an old man. Why aren't you married? You should have 2 kids, 3 kids, be married, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing with my life yet. I took a year and a half, basically 2 years off to do this Mormon mission. So I'm behind all the people that don't do this. I don't know what I want to do. I started out in computer science. That wasn't for me. I switched over to basically biology, pre-med stuff, which I enjoyed, but some of it was very difficult until I really put my mind to it. And I just strayed more and more. I started, you know, partying a little bit again with friends when I'd go back to Canada for the summer. You know, when there was no rules, there was nobody to watch us. We had our own apartments in Lethbridge, Alberta. Had a lot of fun. We'd go to the bars, you know, just normal stuff for 21, 22-year-old dudes. It wasn't like we were doing anything wrong or illegal or hurting anybody. It's just what people do. And when I was 24, I met my ex-wife, but one of my best friends dated her first. When I got back to school earlier than him the next year, they weren't like boyfriend, girlfriend. Her and I started dating. And I remember telling her on maybe the first or second time we hung out that, hey, just so you know, I'm not interested in a long-term relationship with you. That's not what I want. I just knew we weren't compatible, but she was cute. Next thing I know, we're getting married less than a year later. Well, a little over a year later, which is pretty long by Mormon standards. We started dating basically in September of 86. 88 is when I met her. I think I said when I was 24. So 88, the September of 88, end of August. We got married in November of 89. For a Mormon engagement, that's a really long engagement. We got engaged in November of 88 and got married in, May of 89. Still a long engagement. I know a lot of you are like, that's like a 7 months, 6 months. That's not a long engagement. It was back then. Next thing I know, I'm getting married at the Mormon temple. I can't back out at that point. I knew I didn't want to marry her. She knew she didn't want to marry me. We got married, struggled right from the start. We were way better friends. We did have a beautiful daughter, and now we have 4 gorgeous granddaughters from that relationship. So I have no regrets when it comes to that. I've said many times, I don't have a lot of regrets growing up in the Mormon church other than the pressure you feel. I can't speak for the girls. I'm sure it's like that for them too, but the pressure against any kind of sexual sins is enormous. They make you feel like that is your natural instincts, your natural urges are evil. Who gave me these urges? God, right? Heavenly Father. But I'm supposed to fight against them? And I've mentioned this before, I was scared to death of that. I was pretty good. I would get to certain points and I would say, that's it. I was like Joseph in the Bible. I'd have to get up and run away now, because if I go any farther than this, I'm in big trouble. And it got really old. Even as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I remember thinking, I have friends in the Mormon church that are doing a lot more than I'm doing, and they seem fine. What's going on here? It was confusing. My dad was very strict with that stuff. I mean, it's not like he could control me when I was 16, 17, 18 years old when it came to that stuff, especially since I left home at 17. But he had a big influence on my life, and he believed so strongly that I didn't want to go to hell. I don't like that part. It's not right, the pressure they put on kids. And it's not just the Mormon church. There are lots of churches that put pressure like that. So I started fading farther and farther and farther, and I got married, and she wanted to be LDS. She had strayed a little too, I think, at least from some of her stories. I won't get into that. That's her story. But she wanted to be LDS, so I tried. But then I started traveling a lot for work, and I never went to church on the road. So it was basically going to church with her when I was home. And by the time I got divorced, I was done. I wasn't some big partier, but I like to have some beers on the weekend. And then I met my current wife, who we've been together 31 years this summer. We'll be married 30 years in November. And I thought she wanted to be LDS. She thought I did. So I tried. I basically lived a double life for a little while there. I mean, there's no cheating, nothing like that. It's just, I didn't want to be Mormon, and I didn't let her know that. And it didn't take real long, and Sundays were always our worst day. Getting the kids ready for church, going to church. It's the same speeches over and over and over. It's like, how many times do I have to hear this? And I just had had enough. And I can't remember what the catalyst was that moved us on to the next part of our life. She heard something. Her sister lived in Southern California. I hung out with her and her friends, and we would drink sometimes. Maybe it got back to her that way. I don't remember. So then we talked, and we figured it out, and we're like, let's try the church for a couple more months and really try. And the ward we were living in was north of here, and it was a really young bishop. And I went to him and I said, listen, we're going to give this one more shot, but we do not want any callings. We want to focus on us and our family and see if this church is right for us. And he promised me, that sounds good. Take a couple months. We won't call you to anything. Well, I was traveling a lot. I wasn't out of town a week. And he contacted my wife and gave her a calling, I think in the primary or the Sunday school, teaching kids. And my wife's the kind of person that she doesn't want to disappoint people, tell people no. So she accepted. I was pissed. I went and talked to the dude. That was basically the final straw for me. It's like, if I can't even trust the freaking leader that I went and confided to follow through on his word, then this thing doesn't mean anything to me. And, I haven't spoken about that out loud. And in my mind just now, that's kind of what cemented me leaving the church. I was like, okay, I don't trust this church anymore. There's a lot of good here. There's a lot of good people here. I mean, lots of good people. I love living in Utah. I love living in a basically Mormon community, although we have a nice mix here. The crime rate is super low. I mean, it's a good place to live. It's a good place to raise a family, other than if your kids are non-LDS, it's tough for them to have friends. That's another big one. I've talked about that. I won't get into that again. So, why do I talk about the Mormon church so much? Well, this is why. If your interpretation of this is, well, he hasn't gotten past it, he still is part of it, you're free to think that. It's not. I am past it. I don't hedge when I say I'm not going back. Earlier I said never say never, but I say that about everything in life. You don't know what the future holds. But I cannot see myself going to any church. I have some friends in their mid-50s that just got baptized into another church in their mid-50s. I'm like, all right, whatever works for you. It doesn't work for me. I like living my life with my relationship with God being my relationship, a private relationship. My most important relationship is my family. God is very important to me. But I see so many people that put the church above their family and the church's needs above their family. That ain't cool to me. If you believe that, I guess that's your choice. So I will do more Mormon videos. Watch them if you dig them. I hope you do. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. This was actually very cathartic. I had forgotten about that experience with that bishop, and kind of that's what cemented me leaving. I feel really good right now. It's cool talking to y'all. It's cool that some of you watch these whole videos. I know some of you don't, and some of you haven't seen this part. That's cool. I do the same thing. There's YouTube videos I watch the whole thing because they just interest me and they have good content, or their photography. That girl in Sweden, lady in Sweden, Yanni, and her photography is amazing, and she lives in a beautiful place, and she's good at it. She's good at editing. I'm not good at editing. I just talk. I have a daughter and a son that are both really good at it. They could probably do that for me, and maybe someday. I'm gonna get a drone. I want to start doing some different things. By the way, if you are interested, I also have a TikTok channel, same name, Norwegian Arnold. Completely different thing, just goofy, lip syncing, fun stuff, song challenges, that kind of stuff. Check it out if you're interested. So this video went way longer than I thought. I thought I could do this in like 10 minutes. But once I start on something, I want to finish it. So I feel like we're at a point now where I could probably leave it till next time. And like I said, I will talk about this more. And depending on what your comments and reactions are, I'll base it off of that. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Whether you like me or dislike me, I appreciate that you watch. I try to be a friend to everybody. We just had a giant party at my buddy's ranch for the last 2 days. I don't know how many people were there, 200 to 300. He had 6 bands come in. It was a big private party. A lot of us brought our trailers down there and camped down there for the weekend. I think we had 30-something trailers in his back 40. It's not 40 acres. I think he has 8 or 10 acres. But it was so much fun. And there were people that I only meet there every year. And we talk like we're old friends, and new people that I met that were so much fun. People from some of these bands I go up and I talk with, and a bunch of us had cigars yesterday together. Some of them good friends, some new friends. And I love meeting people. And I hope my vibe comes across sincere, that this is my story. I am not a fake dude. What I say is, this is how I am in my real life. I don't put on airs. I don't care if somebody doesn't like the clothes I wear. I'm me. I'm kind of an old Viking hippie. And I dig it. I like my lifestyle. I like my life. I try to be friendly and nice to everybody unless they give me a reason not to. And most people don't. Most people are good. Have a beautiful Sunday. Tack för denna gång. Vi snackas igen snart. Be nice to everybody. You never know what they're going through. Peace. Love.